In this video we're going to look at the rectangular and elliptical marquee tool. That's this tool over here. This is the rectangular marquee tool. If you click just in bottom right hand corner, hold it down, you get the elliptical marquee tool. And if you select it, then you get the elliptical tool or the circle. To go back, click on the corner and get the rectangular marquee tool. Click on the corner if you want the other tool. Otherwise, once you've selected it, that's the tool that you've got. So let's just draw an ordinary rectangle for now. I want to make a copy of this box. So I click and hold down my mouse in the left hand corner, top corner. Drag, holding my mouse down, and I let go, and I've made my selection. To make a copy, it's Control J, or with the Mac, it's Command J. And if you look now, I've got another layer. I'm going to call that feet. I double click on the layer name, press enter. So now I have another layer. Let's move that. So I go to the move tool and I'm going to move that down to the corner and leave it there for now. So that's one thing you can do with a selection. You can make a copy of any area that you like. Let's go back to the rectangular marquee tool. Here you've got some very useful options. Mode. Mode means you can make any size of rectangle that you want, and every time you click it will select a new area. Or just click once to get rid of the square. But sometimes you might want a fixed size. So let's go first for fixed ratio. This means that it's one width to one height, so that in fact will make a square. You can make any size square you like, but it will always have the same ratio of 1 to 1. If I decide I want my width to be 1 and my height to be double, put a 2, and now from now on the height is always double the width. Let's have a look now at fixed size. So I might decide I want my selection to be 6 inches by 5 inches. So I put those measurements in, and from now on, if I click anywhere, the box is exactly that size. Okay, let's go back to normal. And I'm going to press Control D to get rid of the selection. Sometimes you don't want an ordinary rectangle, sometimes you want an odd shape. I make my first shape and I want to add to that, and I do that by holding down the Shift key. Hold down the Shift key, and if you look at those crosshairs, it's actually got a plus. So now if I draw my rectangle, hold down the Shift key, I add to it. Keep it held down, and each time I add to it. And I might think, oh, that's an interesting shape, I want to keep that. I go up to Select, Save Selection, I'm going to call it Boxes. Okay. Now I want to make a change to that selection, but I don't want to do it on my original background. So I'm going to get rid of the selection, Control D. I'm going to make a copy of my background. So I select my background and I do Control J. Now I want to make the change on the background, and luckily I've saved the selection. So I go Select, Load Selection, Boxes, OK, and it loads the selection. Now whatever I do to that selection will do to the layer that I've got selected. So I've got the background copy selected. Let's put a border around it. Edit, Stroke. Right, now I'm going to put a border of 5 pixels and it's going to be black. OK. remove the selection, Command D, Control D, and there I have a selection with a border around it, but I think that's a little bit boring and it doesn't really show up. So I want to do something else with it. Makes it easy because I've saved my selection. Select, load selection. Now I can change the color. Enhance, just color, adjust hue and saturation. And I'm going to put the saturation up quite high. It's quite pretty, that blue. I think I'll leave it at the blue. You can make it a bit darker. Press OK. Now Control D, Command D. And there we have a complete change to that area. Now what happens if we want to subtract from a selection? Again, make sure your rectangular marquee tool is selected. I make my first box, and this time instead of holding down the Shift key, I hold down the Alt key. You'll notice now there's a minus with the cursor. So click, hold down the Alt key, hold down my mouse, and I can subtract. And I think, well, I might want to add to that as well, so I lift the Alt key and I hold down the Shift key. Keeping it held down, I add to it. And my last little selection I don't really like very much, so I go to my Undo History and I go one up. That gets rid of my selection and I can try again. Hold down the Shift key. That's better, that's more in the middle. So every time you want to go one back, you just click on the part of the history that you want to go back to. Okay, I've got my selection. Let's again change the color. Enhance, just color, just hue and saturation, up the saturation, and that is interesting, it comes out more yellowy. I'm going to say keep it as it is. Okay. Control D to get rid of that. But what about this piece in the corner now? Just doesn't look quite right. So I'm going to go back to this layer, feet, that I created earlier, and I'm going to apply a filter to it. So let's click the Move tool. So we've got that selected. I go to Filter, Adjustments, Invert. So now I've swapped around. The black is now the white, and the white is actually almost a greeny colour. And let's change the colour on that as well. Adjust colour. Let's turn up the saturation. Quite a lot. Make it a lot different. Go OK. But you look at that and you think, well, it actually sticks out too much. So let's now blend it. And if you want to understand more about blending, have a look at the blending video for beginners. I'm going to try first of all an overlay. I think that's about right. But it doesn't, it goes over the edges and I don't like that. So let's go to Image, Transform, Skew. Now I can take these corners and I can manipulate it. And there it's fitted exactly within the area that I want it to be fitted. So that's pretty much the rectangular marquee tool. What about the elliptical? Select the little corner, hold it down and get the elliptical marquee tool. I want to highlight these feet because I think they're quite interesting. But I want to make sure the feet are exactly in the middle of the ellipse. So I click in the middle, hold down the mouse and I hold down the Alt key, and the Alt key makes the feet exactly the point in the middle. I'm then going to change the lighting, so it's Enhance, Just Lighting, Levels. I've got to make sure that I've got the right layer selected, So I go to background copy, then I go back to enhance, just lighting, levels. Let's pull the light one down a bit. Okay. Control D. And there I've put a slight highlighter around the feet. What if I wanted to create a ring? If you see the dissection here of these lines, I'm going to put the crosshair exactly in the middle. Hold down my mouse, hold down the Alt key, but at the same time I want to make it exactly a circle. So as well as holding down the Alt key, I hold down the Shift key, and now I've got an exact circle. I let go my mouse and I let go the Shift and the Alt key. And I want to make a circle exactly in the middle. And this is where it gets tricky because you have to use the Alt key twice. So to subtract, as you subtract with a rectangular, use the Alt key. So I press down my Alt key first. I make a selection. I can now let go because my selection has been made minus. Now if I hit the Alt key again, puts it exactly in the middle. Hold down the Shift key, it makes it exactly a circle. And then I let go. And there I have a ring. And this was subtracted, so this is the selection that you've actually got. So let's change the color of that. Enhance, just color, just hue and saturation. I'm going to make that, I think, a pinky color. Okay. Press Control D. And I think, well, actually that disappears again, but I've now let the selection go, so what can I do? Well, again, you go back one, and you'll undo history, and now I can apply something else to it. And perhaps what I should have really have done was to save that selection. So let's save that selection. Circles. Okay. And I'm going to put a border around it. So it's Edit, Stroke Outline, black border. Okay. Control D. Now say I wanted to use that exact selection elsewhere. I can load that selection. So I go to Select, Load Selection. I'm going to choose Circles. I'm going to put that somewhere else. Over there. And I'm going to fill that with a colour. Edit, Fill Selection. And I don't want to fill it so that it's totally opaque. Let's make it about 40%. I'm going to fill it with a colour. Let's see, which one shall I choose? Green. Lighter green. Okay. And there we have the exact selection in a different colour. Control D, Command D to get rid of that. Again, we can do with the elliptical tool exactly the same as we did with the rectangular tool. We can add or subtract. So I create my first one, hold down the Shift key, to add, and then maybe to take away, hold down the Alt key. And let's change the colour of that. Adjust colour, adjust hue and saturation. Oh, I like that. Control D. That's pretty much the rectangle. That's pretty much the rectangular marquee tool and the elliptical marquee tool.